Case study number 3, I want to call this one the Always Remember Everett Sent Ya. I never will forget being introduced to Everett Sent Ya by a shop owner and AVI business guru for the shop management, George Witt. Everett Sent Ya means that customer that says, hey, ever since you did this or you did this to my car, it now got this other symptom. And this is the case of the pickup truck that had to be set up for a new keyless entry module. So this was a 2008, I'll call it the what a wicked web we weave once we learn not to deceive, but to reprogram. 2008 Chevrolet Silverado, this problem where the keyless entry was not working with either key fob. A local parts store checked the key fobs out. The fobs were fine. Technician did further diagnosis, determined that the keyless entry module was bad. So the RKE, or remote control door lock, RCDL, whatever you want to call it, I'll call it RKE, remote keyless entry, that module was bad. Well, the service manual showed a little excerpt on, how to hold the buttons in and so forth on the old key fobs when a new module is replaced, or if you have a good module and you need new fobs, either way, the learned procedure was successfully performed. So when the the driver in this fleet truck got the vehicle back, he could use his fob button, unlock the doors, and he was very happy. So we have a new problem now after the keyless entry module is replaced, and that's all working great. Unlock, lock, honk the horn, whatever. TPMS indicator is on, indicating we have an issue with the tire monitor pressure system. So the Everett Sent Ya fixed my keyless entry. My key fobs are working now, but now I got a problem with my tire monitoring system. What's the connection? RF. Radio frequency is what these work off of. Radio frequency is what these work off of. So wouldn't it make sense for an engineer to design one module that does both jobs, receives the TPMS tire monitoring information from each tire, and also receive the radio signal from the keyless entry module? So when this was the module that this talks to was replaced, it no longer was functioning with these guys and had to be introduced to these guys. So that was a reflash procedure to do that. So once that keyless entry module / TPMS system is reflashed with a J2534 tool or a Tech 2, then the vehicle is fixed. So the dealer didn't mention J2534, as most dealers don't even know it exists. They just said, you got to come back to us. We forgot to tell you. You buy an RKE, you got to bring the vehicle into us, and we're going to go ahead and flash that unit. Well, I said, hey, I'll just do it with my universal tool. So I went into the GM TIS to web and was able to download a calibration for the remote keyless entry module. And when I did, not only did the fob still work, but now the TPMS system is no longer lighting up the indication on the dash. So both systems are fixed and working. Everett Sent Ya is now pretty much put to rest, or so we thought. Now we have another new problem. And that's what brings it to this case study. What was the next new problem that popped up? The Everett Sent Ya reflash my keyless entry module now. The driver noticed that the odometer has switched. The seasonal odometer for the total vehicle mileage has switched from English, miles, to metric, kilometers. A minor thing. We assumed there'd be a button somewhere on the dash. There was none. So we scoured the owner's manual. Nothing mentioned about it in the owner's manual. So now we get desperate and we're looking through the General Motors TIS to web, we're looking, or SI 2000, we're looking for TSBs, we're looking for the preliminary information bulletins that are very helpful at times. Nothing is indicating any kind of problem, anything you can do. It doesn't mention anything about a metric cluster unless you're in Canada and you buy the truck with a metric cluster. So we went back, stepped back a minute, and we thought, what did we do? Maybe this really is an Everett Sent Ya. Maybe we did. Ever since we flashed that remote keyless entry module, we have created a problem. The problem is in the cluster. The cluster is the complaint now. It shows kilometers for the seasonal odometer as opposed to mileage. So what can we do? We did our research. Nothing there in TSBs in the General Motors SI 2000 site. No preliminary information in the GM SI 2000 site. So I go to the TIS to web, which is the GM site for reflashing, hoping to find something in the cluster calibration notations that says this part number of calibration to repair complaint or fix complaint, resolving around a metric cluster now that you have flashed a keyless entry. No such luck. As a matter of fact, the same cal that my Delphi scanner flasher would read off that cluster was the same cal part number that SI 2000 said was the latest and greatest. And the notation just basically said part number from module will read such and such. That was it. So the detailed summary of the latest and greatest calibration I could get for this truck's cluster showed it was the same thing as what it had in it. And normally you don't reflash any component with the same software it already has. It doesn't make sense. In fact, Ford will not let you, as far as I know. Toyota will not let you, as far as I know. Chrysler will. You can reflash that same calibration for a PCM with a J2534 tool into a Chrysler over and over. And the same thing goes for General Motors. So I thought, we have nothing to lose. Sometimes the bits of data in memory can be corrupted, and reinstalling that same software. Think about it. Have you ever in your life had to reinstall Windows? I have once or twice when I've had a virus or some kind of other corrupted information in a computer. So the same thing that applies to the laptop computers also applies to computers on vehicles. So since General Motors and Chrysler are gracious enough to allow you and me, the tech, to reflash the same software, let's give it a whirl. So we reflashed that cluster that had been somehow affected by the flashing of another module on the vehicle, the remote keyless entry. Whether it was a voltage spike, a coincidence, or some chain of reaction, we don't know. But we know that cluster is showing kilometers and we don't want it doing that. And what do? Well, we flashed it. Well, we'll flash something else on the truck. We'll flash the cluster now. Flash the cluster with the exact same calibration. Guess what? Now shows miles again. So the truck's fixed. So what's the lessons learned here? When in doubt, flash if you can. Now also give a disclaimer here. If there's no reason to flash a vehicle's module, don't do it. Remember, if it's not broke, you can't fix it. But if it's broke, even though it may have the exact same software as the latest and greatest that you could download from that OEM's website, if that manufacturer, and GM and Chrysler are two that allow you to do this, will allow you to put the same flash back into that vehicle, and you have nothing else to lose and everything to gain, go ahead and reflash it again. It did in our case, and I've actually fixed several cars with this method as well. By the way, we tried the universal, what they call it, global battery reset, where you take the negative cable off and you touch it over to the positive to discharge any capacitors. That didn't fix it either. It was only a reflash with the same cal.